What a deafening sound of metal screeching against the tile floor, a sound that sliced through the mundane chatter of the Valencia University cafeteria like a gunshot. It was followed by the sickening thud of a baseball bat, then another, and then the triumphant, cruel laughter of three boys who thought they were kings. Broken wheelchair parts scattered across the floor like shattered bones. Grace Morgan, all 17 years of her, lay on the cold ground, her prosthetic leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Her world reduced to a blur of humiliation and terror. Before we get started with this story, let us know where you're tuning in from. We love hearing your thoughts and seeing where everyone's watching. The ringleader, Marco, a smug grin plastered on his face, casually leaned on the bat he'd used, a grotesque scepter of his power. "Look at the cripple," he sneered, his words dripping with venom. "All her fancy wheels, and she still can't stand up for herself." Grace, a back student who preferred the quiet corners of the library to the loud, unforgiving social landscape of the university, bit back a sob. She wasn't just helpless. She was an exhibit of their power, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to be different. Tears welled in her eyes, not from the pain in her leg, but from the crushing weight of their cruelty. Her humiliation was a physical thing, a heavy stone in her chest that made it hard to breathe. Then, a sudden silence fell over the bustling cafeteria. The noise didn't just fade, it evaporated, replaced by a tense, electric hush. Heads turned and a ripple of whispers moved through the room. Grace, still on the floor, felt a shadow fall over her. She looked up, her vision blurred by tears. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he was carved from granite. His shoulders were impossibly broad, his posture as straight as a soldier's. His olive green tactical jacket was the only splash of color in the sea of shocked faces, a stark uniform against the casual wear of the students. It was Mateo, her older brother, her protector. He was home. His gaze was fixed, unblinking. It wasn't the look of a worried brother, but the predatory stare of a hunter who had just spotted his prey. The air seemed to crackle with an unspoken threat. Marco's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. He shifted his weight, gripping the bat a little tighter. Mateo's eyes swept over the scene, taking in the broken wheelchair, the scattered parts, and finally, his sister on the floor, her face a mask of shame and pain. The flicker of unease on Marco's face turned into cold fear. Mateo took a step, then another. He didn't run, he didn't yell. He moved with a terrifying, deliberate calm. The only sound was the low, purposeful tread of his boots. It was the silence before a storm. "That's a nice bat you have there." Mateo's voice was a low growl, a sound that sent a shiver down Grace's spine. It was a voice you knew well, the voice he used when he was suppressing a hurricane of rage. "It's worth about as much as your courage, I imagine." Marco scoffed, trying to regain his bravado. "Who are you?" "I'm her brother," Mateo said simply. It wasn't an answer. It was a declaration of war. He looked at Marco's companions, their faces now pale. "And you?" he continued, his voice dropping even lower. "You will put every single piece of that chair back together, now." The cafeteria crowd watched, mesmerized. They expected a brawl, a cinematic fight scene. But what they were getting was something far more chilling. They were watching a professional dismantle three amateurs, not with his fists, but with the sheer force of his presence. Marco's lip curled. "Who or what?" he challenged, his voice cracking slightly. Mateo didn't say a word. He just took another step, closing the distance. He looked down at Grace, his gaze softening for a microsecond. He then shifted his attention back to Marco, the change so subtle, yet so profound it felt like a door had just been slammed shut on a burning room. He didn't touch him. He didn't need to. He simply leaned in and whispered something only Marco could hear. Whatever it was, The color drained from Marco's face. His mouth dried up, and he dropped the bat with a clatter. It rolled a short distance and hit Grace's good leg. She flinched. Mateo knelt down, his gaze never leaving Marco's face. He gently helped Grace sit up, his movements as precise as a surgeon's. He carefully examined her prosthetic, his jaw tight. "It's a clean break," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "We'll get you a new one." He then turned his attention back to the bullies. "I'm calling the police, I'm calling your parents, and I'm calling the military base. This is a hate crime, and I will make sure you never walk on this campus again." Marco's father, a slick-haired, well-dressed man, and Grace's parents sat in the university dean's office. The air was thick with tension. Marco's father, Mr. Salgado, had offered to buy a new wheelchair and prosthetic leg, a gesture that was more about damage control than genuine remorse. He had a look on his face that said he was annoyed rather than ashamed. "This is all a misunderstanding," Mr. Salgado said, his voice as smooth as his hair. "Boys will be boys." "Boys will be boys don't destroy a disabled girl's mobility aid," Grace's father, a humble accountant, countered, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. But Mateo remained silent. He sat perfectly still, his hands clasped in his lap, the picture of controlled fury. The dean, a stern-faced woman with tired eyes, looked at him. "Officer Mateo, we appreciate your calm demeanor, but your behavior in the cafeteria was aggressive." Mateo's jaw tightened. "Aggressive. My sister was on the ground. Her livelihood was destroyed. I took no action. My actions were to ensure no physical harm came to the boys. I gave them a taste of fear. Fear, Dean, is a powerful motivator. It is also a powerful lesson." Marco Salgado spluttered. "What did you say to my son? He's a mess. He won't talk." He met his gaze, his eyes like chipped ice. "I simply told him what I do for a living. I told him I'm an officer, trained to defend lives and property, and that his actions were an affront to everything I stood for. I told him I'd be his personal trainer for a month. A boot camp. It's good for the soul." The dean looked shocked. "Officer, you are not a physical education instructor." He leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "I am a retired officer. I got honorably discharged. You see, I was serving in a very sensitive unit, but I'm no longer in the service. My mission now is to protect my sister and family. That's a full-time job." This was the first twist. Mateo wasn't on leave. He was out of the military, and not by choice. The reason, Grace will learn later, was an injury, a shrapnel wound to his leg. An irony so bitter, it felt like a cruel joke. He had come home, not as a hero on a break, but as a man searching for a new purpose. And he had found it in a broken wheelchair and a terrified little sister. That night, Grace's room was a quiet sanctuary. Mateo sat on the edge of her bed, his gaze fixed on her. He had already ordered a new wheelchair, a high-tech carbon fiber model with a sleek design. It would arrive in a few weeks, but he knew the damage wasn't just to the metal frame. It was to her spirit. "Grace," he said, his voice soft, a rare moment of vulnerability. "You can't let them do this to you. You can't let them win. Their power is not real. It is an illusion. We have to fight back, but not in their way." Grace looked at him, her eyes wide with a fragile hope. "But how? I can't stand up to them. I'm not like you." Mateo smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Yes, you are. You're stronger than you think. You've been fighting your whole life. You just don't know it. We're going to start your training tomorrow." And so it began the transformation. It wasn't about martial arts or learning how to throw a punch. It was about something deeper. It was about mental fortitude, about building a fortress around her soul. Mateo had her doing small things at first. He had her get her own water. He had her speak up when she wanted something. He had her look people in the eye when she was talking to them. He started her on a physical regimen, too. It was tough. It was painful, but it was for her. He taught her how to use her body in ways she had never imagined. He showed her that her prosthetic leg wasn't a weakness, but a tool. He taught her how to move with it, how to pivot, how to use her center of gravity. He taught her to have a voice. The training was grueling, but it was also a revelation. Grace found strength she never knew she had. She had always seen her disability as a limitation. Mateo saw it as a starting point, a different kind of strength, a different path to power. Then came the next attack. It wasn't physical this time. It was a cowardly, insidious smear campaign. The bullies, now facing expulsion and community service, decided to ruin Grace's reputation. They created a fake social media account